Welcome back to class. Today we'll talk about functional behavior assessment. You know, all behaviors are learned and maintained through interaction with the social and physical environment. We will talk about this in week 5, but these behavior environment interactions are described as positive or negative reinforcement contingencies. So FBA, functional behavior assessment, enables hypotheses about the relations among specific types of environmental events and behaviors. FBA is also designed to obtain information about the purposes we call functions a behavior serves for a person. So for your final project, I know you already find a person with disability, right? So we are going to try this FBA. You will complete FBA and then you will develop BIP and you will deliver a intervention from your BIP you developed for the person. Alrighty, so generally we say there are two functions of behaviors, possible functions, to get something or to avoid something. But when we say four functions, four purposes, then we say it. Escape, attention, tangible, or sensory like physical stimulation. The main purpose of doing FBA is to identify the purpose of behaviors, and it will help us to design appropriate intervention for the individual. By doing FBA, you can define the topography of the behavior, means the form of behavior, how the behavior looks like. You can also collect data to identify setting events, antecedents, and consequence of the behavior. You can predict when the behavior will and will not occur. You can also assess students' functional communication and the communication mode. You can also identify the student's preference. FBA tells us when the behavior occurs, how the behavior looks like, and why the behavior occurs. Let's talk about some of the important terms before we move on. So setting events are the conditions that increase the likelihood a behavior will occur. So for example, a student did not have enough sleep last night, or the student did not have breakfast in the morning. Then those kind of physical conditions will affect the student's routine and physical condition throughout the day. Antecedents tell us what happened right before a challenging behavior. So by having consistent, repeated observation, you can figure out the patterns of A and B, between A and B. So you can prevent the challenging behavior from occurring. For example, a person just walked into the room and my students start to scream. Then the person's present is the antecedent stimulus that make my student scream, right? So by having consistent multiple observation, you can kind of figure out the patterns of between A and B, so you can prevent the problem behavior from occurring. Here is the general procedures for FBA and BIP. After you gather information about challenging behavior using interview, rating scale, ABC analysis, or scatter plot, you can come up with summary statement. That's called hypothesis, right? And you have to test your hypothesis to see your statement is true. And then, based on the information, you will develop BIP. FBA methods can be classified into 3 types: functional analysis, descriptive assessment, and indirect assessment. Functional analysis is a good one, but it's frequently used in research, so we are not going to talk about these. We will use descriptive assessment and indirect assessment. So indirect information can be gathered through interview and rating scale. And in direct observation include ABC analysis and scatter plot. Let's talk about the interview. The goal of a behavioral interview is to obtain clear and objective information about the problem behaviors, antecedents, and consequences. This might include clarifying description of the behavior, when, where, with whom, and how often it occurs, what typically precedes the behavior, what the child and others typically do immediately following the behavior, and what steps have previously been taken to address the problem behavior, and with what result. We are going to use the shortened version of functional assessment interview form developed by O'Neill. So it's online, you can download, use it. I will explain how to use the form when you have to turn in your final project. So this is direct observation, ABC analysis. So you will do multiple ABC observations. So you will figure out antecedents and consequence of the behavior. And the result patterns provide information regarding typical antecedents to behavior, typical consequences for behavior, and the result of those consequences on behavior. This is an example of ABC narrative recording. You will collect data when behaviors of interest, your target behaviors, are observed, and recording is open-ended. So you can record whenever you see the target behavior, then you will record the time, what happened right before the target behavior, and what happened right after the target behavior. So you will do multiple observations and you will figure out ABC patterns. So this is the example of the ABC narrative recording. This is another example of ABC. This form is more specific and the observer wants to observe this person Joy's screaming behavior. The observers specifically includes where the behavior occurs and the possible functions. We know the possible functions, the four possible functions. So after this teacher had observation, then he will circle one of the possible function for that instance. We use ABC chart a lot because it tells us what the student is doing that is inappropriate and the frequency of target behavior, and it also tells us antecedents and consequences. So it's convenient, so we want to use this. Now, based on the information you gather from ABC chart or interview or scatter plot and rating scale, other sources too, you will develop summary statements and hypotheses. So basically, you can summarize when the behavior occurs, what kind of behavior occurs, what happens after the behavior. If you can identify the possible function for each event, that would be great too. Hypothesis statements should be written in ABC format as you see in this figure. For example, when this person is prompted to wash your hands in preparation for lunch, that's the antecedent behavior. This behavior will happen and the consequence is this. So you have to have in the order. And then if you can find out the hypothesized function, which is to escape from hand washing or lunch, then it will be perfect. So A, B, C, and possible function in one statement, that would be the best hypothesis. Once you develop your hypothesis summary statement, you want to test if the statement is true, because your statement is from your subjective observations or interview data. So we want to confirm that the summary statement and hypothesis is reoccurring and it is true. There are several ways to do it, but in the real life, as a teacher practitioner, you can conduct additional observations to accumulate data showing a clear pattern of the antecedent behavior and consequences you identified. So you will see if the ABC is reoccurring over and over and over to confirm your hypothesis. Another way to test your hypothesis is to do functional analysis. So, by simply saying you will manipulate the antecedent variable and consequence variable you identify to determine if your hypothesis about the function and predictor of the behavior is correct. So, you will change the antecedent variable, alter the variables and conditions, and see that if when you change and alter antecedent variable or consequence variable, you will see if the B behavior is still occurring in the same way or similar way. If not, then your ABC contingency you identify is not true, right? So you will manipulate A and C stimulus, the variable, to see if your ABC, your identify ABC, is true. Now you know that your ABC and the function you identify is true by testing. Then you will develop intervention. It's called behavior intervention plan. So once you finish FBA, then you will develop BIP, behavior intervention plan. This includes antecedent setting events intervention, behavior teaching, and consequence-based strategy. So you will identify several intervention strategy under A, B, and C, which means you can alter antecedent variables, so you can see that you can prevent the problem behavior from occurring. You can also alter consequence variable, and you can directly teach alternative but appropriate behavior, so you don't want to see problem behavior from occurring. When you develop an intervention, remember that FBA does not identify the intervention strategy for you. It does provide information why the behavior occurred, the function only. However, it does provide information about powerful reinforcers you can use when you develop intervention, because you know the consequence of the behavior, what is reinforcing the behavior, right? uh, when you choose an intervention, the intervention must match the functional problem behavior. For example, if the functional problem behavior is to escape from the situation or the task, then the intervention should provide escape for alternative behavior. You will teach the alternate behavior, but the intervention, the alternate behavior should allow the person to escape from the situation. Or you can alter task demands, so you can delay escape a little bit, but eventually the child can escape from the situation. Another example is if the the functional problem behavior is to gain something, then the intervention you choose should provide the desired outcome. So by doing the alternate behavior, you will be teaching to the student should be able to gain the thing he wants. Or you can alter antecedent condition to make attention or tangible less reinforcing, which means if by changing the antecedent condition, the value of consequence, the reinforcer decreases. We will talk about this later. Now, let's talk about your practicum report. This week, you have to turn in your practicum report, step 1. Like I said before, you will choose one student or individual or child with disability or behavioral issues. So you will work with the person throughout the semester. You will conduct FBA and you will develop BIP and you will implement a behavior intervention for the person. So you can use your connections or you can use your current workplace, school, daycare, rehab center, community-based center or home-based center. Wherever you work or wherever you have connections, you will find a person with disability. There will be no required hour for this class. You will just meet the person and you will complete this project. So you will meet the person enough to finish this project. So let's talk about step 1. Step 1, you will identify the target person. You will talk about the person. Do not use the person's real name. You will use pseudonym. And after you have some brief observation of the person, you will provide a brief description of the problem behavior he or she has and what the problem behavior looks like. You can just pick one problem behavior and you will provide topography, means what the behavior looks like. And then you will talk about the settings too, like classroom, clinic, residential treatment center, wherever you are. And you will talk about the setting and routine, such things. Just 2 pages, and it will be worth for 10 points. Now, this week you have to finish one IRIS module on FBA. You will see this link. You can click the link. The link is also on the blackboard, so you can click that. Once you click this link, you will see this page. Then on the left side, on the navigation bar, you are seeing challenges, initial thoughts, perspectives, resources, and wrap up, and assessment, right? And you will study from challenges to all the way to assessment, like here, right? Once you finish study on the assessment, you will see this page. And the assessment page provides you with 6 or 7 questions. After you study this module, from challenges to wrap up, then you'll be able to answer these 6 questions. Open a document file and write your answer and save it, and you can drop your file to Blackboard. There is a link on Blackboard. You can drop your answer to Blackboard by Saturday. If you have any question, please email me, sunnykim@uic.edu. Thank you.